Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the CryptoCannaVerse show, a globally inclusive podcast that serves a hub for visionary entrepreneurs operating at the intersection of four key domains: Christ, cannabis, cryptocurrency, and CPAs. We connect founders with investors, advisors, and partnerships. All faiths are welcome. Hosted by Crystal Wampler and Alan Lau. And today, our special guest co-host is zooming in live from Dubai, Mr. Mark Fidelman. Mark, did I pronounce your last name correctly?
It's Fidelman, but very close.
Close, Fidelman. Thank you, Mark. Welcome. Mark is the founder of Smart Blocks Exchange, a real estate tokenization SaaS company. Mark, can you go ahead and tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got into tokenizing real estate?
Yeah, I'll make it real brief. Two passions of mine, tokenization and real estate. And then finally, Gary Gensler, who is basically trying to destroy the cryptocurrency industry. So what I did is say, okay, what's their next move? They're going to make everything a security. So let's go the tokenization route. Let's get ahead of it. And I think that was one of the smartest things I could have done, because now we're going to be launching a platform here in Q1 2024 for anyone in the world really to launch real estate, but we're going to start in the UAE.
Nice. And you've already actually provided your services of tokenizing for what, 500 million or more?
Yeah, anything from gold to crypto ETFs, decentralized crypto ETFs. Of course, SEC still hasn't approved a single one, but yeah, things like that.
Very cool. Well, thank you for joining us today. We very much appreciate it. The show is booked through April 2024. If you would like to be a guest on the show, please reach out to me, Crystal at canethics.com. Please make a note that I am not advising you to invest in any of the deals on my show. Please reach out to a professional investor advisor. Today's show is being broadcast live across multiple platforms, including YouTube, Twitter, Facebook groups, LinkedIn, with a following of over 10,000. Our following includes a strategic network of venture capital firms, hedge funds, both blockchain and crypto hedge funds. And we have, high net worth business owners, Web3 launchpads, CPAs, attorneys with high net worth clienteles, angel investors. And before we introduce our guest speaker today, Alan, will you please read our Bible verse?
Yes, thank you, Crystal. Thank you, everyone, for joining our CryptoCannaVerse show on a weekly basis. Our Bible verse comes from Hebrews 11:1, and it says, "Now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see." So having faith and being a believer and having faith that God is in control of all things, knowing that it builds confidence, knowing that you have faith in God, knowing He has footsteps and kind of prepare your path. When I say prepare your path, like prepare the people that you meet, prepare some of the things that you learn on a daily basis. I would say, having faith is huge when it comes to be a believer, because without faith and without hope, you don't really see a future. And oftentimes we all come to a time where sometimes we lose faith, right? We lose hope. We lose that, hey, how come this is not happening the way that we want it to be? But as you continue to trust in Him and continue to have faith, God will answer prayers. And I truly believe that. So I love this verse. This is actually a verse I should put it on my refrigerator. Like just every day, just walk by the refrigerator. Oh, Hebrews 11:1. It's about faith, it's confidence. So
thanks, Alan. Thank you for sharing that. We appreciate you. The CryptoCannaVerse show presents speaker Alvin Fu, co-founder of NASDEX, today, Friday, November 3rd, 2023. Alvin is a venture partner at Chain Valley Capital and co-founder of NASDEX, having previously worked at Interpublic Group, Omnicom Group, and Google. He also serves as an advisor and investor to several startups in the blockchain and Web3 sectors. Welcome, Alvin. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure. Please start by telling us, how did you get into, the whole Web3 crypto industry?
Okay. Wow. How much time have we got? An hour?
We got an hour.
Right.
When did you go down the proverbial rabbit hole?
I actually started, there's a little bit of a story behind this. I actually started, supposed to start in I think 2012 or 2011, when someone introduced Bitcoin to me. And at that time, when I was looking at Bitcoin, I thought it was a Ponzi scheme. So I thought it was a Ponzi because I just, I just couldn't comprehend. Maybe because at that time I was too busy running my other companies, right? So when I look at Bitcoin at that time, that was worth, maybe sub 100. I think anything under $80 or something. And as I can recall, because it started from zero and there was no basis, and there was no intrinsic value, and I just drop it at at that point. And I think it came back to me. The same person who introduced me came back to me in 2015 and said, Alvin, you should make some bucks, some money after I introduced you Bitcoin in 2012, right? So I said I didn't buy any. I didn't own any. Really, I literally at that point, I didn't even know what was a wallet. I knew there was a thing I need to carry like a wallet, but I have no idea what wallet was at the time. So fair enough. After being alerted second time, and I started looking at Bitcoin in 2015, 2016. It was already trading somewhere between maybe at least $300-400 already, and I started to take a more deeper look into what in the world is Bitcoin, and subsequently understanding blockchain, the technology behind it, and understanding being a digital payment, stored value, and so forth. And I started to take a position, and that was a point where I gradually got into the rabbit hole, so to speak. Yeah. And since then I've been active in I've been very active in projects, advising projects, getting very close to at least investing into project from that point. It was not until in 2020 that I actually got out from my full-time role, and went straight in and said I'm going to go all in on Web3. So it was 2020 that I stepped out from my full-time role at Interpublic Group, and I got into crypto and started building my project and launched my first token in 2020. And subsequently, I've been launching more and more tokens, and also investing into tokens. That's how I got into investing in Web3 project after launching my token. So it has been quite a journey. I went through at least two bull runs, and obviously two bear market, right? And at least I understand the whole dynamics of what is a bull and bear market. And of course, we are going through that market again. We are a lot better than what it was at least 6 months ago. I think I had this conversation with Mark, at that point when I was talking to Mark. The crypto market at that point was still very depressed. At least right now, we're looking good. We're still not out of the wood yet. It's not like the market is definitely has improved a lot since I last spoke to Mark. At least people are looking to projects again. Money are pouring back into Web3 project, but it's not. A lot of people ask me, is it a signal to a bull market? I don't think it is at this point of time yet, but certainly the market has improved a lot tremendously. So that's how I got started.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Can you tell us a little bit about NASDEX?
Okay. So NASDEX is one of the early projects that I incubated with my team. I think I shared this with Mark maybe like at least a year ago, right, Mark? And yeah. What we wanted to do at that point was we wanted to build a tokenized asset trading platform that allows anybody mint or create, right, a tokenized version of an equity of a stocks. So someone could go and create a tokenized version of Tesla, tokenized version of Apple, and then mint them on our platform. And then, you know, what you can do then is then create a liquidity pool and then offer that to anyone who wants to buy, who wants to take a position in that tokenized version of Tesla. So that was how the idea was actually crafted out in 2020. We got our token launch in 2021, and subsequently we launched the product in 2022. But you know, timing was not right because we just started and we got slammed. You know, there was the whole Luna and Terra incident that came somewhere in May, and people were just pulling out liquidity. So at that point, because the entire business was based on you know, investors and also retailers, you know, providing liquidity. So our liquidity got into a position where most people are pulling it out at that point. And somehow the bear market started, and then we just, you know, gradually started to rethink of the whole thing, because when Terra got slammed, and then obviously in November, December of the same year, right? You got the FTX, right? So we realized that, you know, the things are going to change rapidly on regulation. What we were doing then, I think, is a very sensitive area because it's encroaching into security. And therefore, we started pivoting in 2023, where we moved the entire business into offering tokenized asset, right? Tokenized real world asset. But what we want to do is that, because we want to be compliant, and also we want to make sure that we want to be licensed. So therefore, we have actually got ourselves into a security token offering service and platform that we have just developed recently, and we're thinking of lining up some new asset, not property at this point of time. I know Mark is doing tokenized version of property, but we want to focus on helping companies, right? Any companies who wants to raise funding on the crypto market. So what we do is that we will create a tokenized version of their stocks, right, on chain. So that's where we are heading in that direction. We are not getting into the physical asset, because the physical asset, I think there's a lot of things that are not settled, because, you know, custodian, you know, standardization and so forth, right? So we don't want to touch that first. Right now, we just want to focus on equity, derivatives, and mostly financial products. And
Alvin, are you doing this in the States as well? Do you feel like you're not going to get a Wells notice if you float this out?
We are not going now. Our license is actually in Southeast Asia, mainly Philippines and Malaysia offshore. So we're targeting Asia at this point of time, in less sensitive market, right? Because we don't want to get into the US. We don't want to touch China and all that. So it's really within Asia, where you know what Asia is like. It's a lot more crypto friendly, and also like countries like Hong Kong and also Singapore. It has a very established digital assets rules and regulations. So at least we know how to deal with it, and also because our license are from these two countries, right? So we want to play by the book, right, and just, you know, target those market first.
Okay, and if I understand you correctly, you're tokenizing the equity in a company. So if a small or medium-sized company came to you and said, "Hey, we think we're worth $25 million. We want to tokenize our equity," you will then help them with your platform go through the process of doing that, and then they can offer those shares or tokens to investors. Is that pretty much a summary of how it works, at least for equity?
Yes, think of it as an IPO, except it's on chain, right? Okay. So we will recreate those equity into tokens, and then offer them to the investors.
Okay, and then, you know, the big problem with RWA, you probably know this, and I talk about this a lot, is liquidity isn't quite there yet. So are you creating liquidity pools, or do you have any guarantees for liquidity? Do you rely on the issuer to create that liquidity? How does that work?
We will work with the issuer on the liquidity, because because liquidity will always be a problem, right? So we want to make sure that when we start, we want to kick off with some of these companies, right? We want to work with the issuer on the liquidity. So i.e. After the STO launch, right, of the token, we will then create a liquidity pool on the secondary market, and then that will be facilitated by the issuer and ourselves.
Okay. And do you handle like if there's any dividends given out, are you building that all into the smart contracts, so those are distributed automatically?
No, in fact, one of the requirements is that, because, as you know, right, crypto is a high risk a product, right? So we want to create something that's low risk. In fact, what we are, when we are identifying some of these companies, we want to work with companies that at least, right, they are on track to be making money. So at least they can provide like some form of profit guarantee for the next 2 to 3 years. Right. So there will be some dividend that they will have to, otherwise I can't see how people would want to invest into this asset. Right.
Yeah.
Great questions. Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
I was trying to find the raise hand button. I was like, I'm doing it real. What do you think people, or even yourself, look for when they are looking to invest in these tokens?
Now, we are not going after degens, right? The degens will be investing into crypto, the regular utility token crypto, which is already very high risk, right? So we are actually going after, high net worth individual, or even, funds or whatever, who wants to invest into companies who has got a stable business, and at least they are on track to make money. Right. And this is the kind of company that we are filtering. We don't want any company to get onto the STO, because the last thing that we want to do, right, is to send companies there and everybody loses money again. Right. So our target audience is our target investors are not degens. Degens, they are already very savvy. They know where to go and hunt those 100x and 1000x, and because these are all asset-backed tokens, right, there is already an underlying value, a very transparent value on so we'll help them on the valuation. So we have got consultant who will help them on the valuation, on the tokenomics, and so forth, and because we are licensed, right, therefore we require companies to accounts to be audited. We also need to make sure that they get legal opinion, and also there's also a compliance requirement. So the standard is a lot higher. Definitely not as strict as going after an IPO on a NASDEX, but certainly not a utility token on the other extreme. So that will provide some form of comfort for high net worth individuals to be investing into this asset, and because we want to also make sure that at least in the first few STO, right, we expect these companies, right, to be providing some form of guaranteed yield. So that would be like a sweetener for someone to invest in them, because again, these companies could also fail. I don't guarantee that this company will become successful, but at least that this will provide them an avenue for them to go and raise money, and at the same time offering back to token holders, right, at least a stake in the company, and at the same time, if they make money, they will also make money. And of course, if the company does well in the future, the valuation of these companies will also appreciate accordingly.
Thank you, Alvin. Bill, did you have a question?
Yes. How are you going to get companies to the platform? And how are you going to get users to the platform?
Now we have got existing user on NASDEQ already, right? Because we started up as a decentralized exchange. So there are going to be few tiers of investors, as I said, right? Some of them are crypto investors, some of them are high net worth individuals, and of course we have got some who are fund managers. So again, there are few tiers of investors on the one end, and companies companies that we are looking for, we have got a BD team, right, that will go and filter out these companies. And of course, we have got some companies who write to us directly, and hoping that we can guide them, the entire process of tokenization. So we do this internally at this point of time, but on compliance, on legal, on the other some of the other processes, right? We have got consulting company and advisory companies to help us. So that those are third party consultant.
So there's an expression in Chinese, which I'll say in English. A Chinese businessman keeps 3 sets of books, one for the government, one for his wife, and one for his girlfriend. You ever heard that expression?
Yeah, we hear that all the time.
Is it true? That's
It
the
is
question.
true. It is true. It is true.
So,
Well, so yeah, I mean,
so there needs to be a really good filtering mechanism on your side to really understand what these
right.
guys are doing. You know, I'm not, you're not going into mainland China. I get it. But, you know, I mean, I deal with Chinese businessmen all over the world. So,
Right.
and it's not
Right.
just restricted to Chinese, by the way. You know, we have lots of business people do this.
Right. We now, number one, we are not going after Chinese companies because we can, right? The Chinese government would never allow us to tokenize their asset, right? So we're going after anything in Asia ex-China, and because there is a requirement of accounts being audited, so at least that is some form of comfort that we can give to our investors, and also because we internally have a team. I've got a guy who is an ex Accenture, so that guy will be helping us on going through the audited account. So at least that will give comfort. At least so we know when we tokenize certain asset in the company, we know the asset is there, and also because the accounts are audited by a certified auditor of any kind.
Let me ask a capitalist question. I'm sorry I keep asking these, but how do you make money?
Say again?
How do you?
So how do you make money? Okay, we make money from, number one, we make money from fundraising because we built an SDO launch pad. So we actually make money when we help them to raise fund, and also because we have an exchange, right? We also make money out of the transaction. So those are the two areas where we make money.
Have you thought about requesting, layer 1 blockchains for grants?
Now we are talking to some of the layer 1, because a lot of layer 1 are actually offering money, but because this is a licensed product, right? The entire offering at this point of time is a centralized offering. So the entire platform is built on a centralized server, unlike decentralized exchange, right, where we built on certain protocol, but because there's the requirement for licensing, right, we are a centralized platform.
Do you have someone on your team that is really good at educating these, ultra high net worth individuals? Because we know that that's a difficult barrier to pass sometimes.
So we have an investment director, and it is his job, right, to actually pull in the high net worth individual.
Yeah, but once you get them in, how do you explain, what you're doing to him in layman's terms, in 8th grade terms?
Yeah, we have a deck where we share with them, right, the entire process of, number one, what's the SDO process looks like, what are our requirements, right, and how do you come in? So we do have an onboarding process for our investors, the high net worth individuals. We do. But it's so that's why we don't have a huge target initially, because there's a lot of education. I'm sure Mark understands this. Even with tokenized real estate, right? People has got money, right? But this is an area where it's still very new to a lot of people, right? And also, in fact, when I talk to companies, right, when we offer them the solution, right, they're still trying to. I mean, they are still trying to figure out what is cryptocurrency. Imagine, right? They're still at that stage, right? I mean, cryptocurrency to them means Bitcoin,
Right.
right? So, right, Bitcoin, and if they can get to Ethereum, that's not bad already, right? So there's a bit of education, but the way we explain it, we use traditional finance to explain them, like IPO. So this is STO. You got stocks on the one end, then you got tokens on the other end. So we use traditional finance term, right, to explain that so they understand, right? So I think our value proposition is that one, I think, is the STO platform, and the other one mainly pulling in the investors, because if we can pull in a lot of investors, then that will allow us, right, to talk to more companies, because at the end of the day, it's all down to liquidity, right? If you are not able to pull in the liquidity, then there's nothing to talk about. So liquidity is everything at the end. So the challenge for us, I think, is liquidity.
Yeah,
It's
and that's
easy
gonna
to put in the companies.
one
It's
solve.
easy to put in the companies. No. I mean, we ask me, in how difficult it is to onboard them. It's not difficult. I mean, it's a process and all that. These are very manual work, right? But it's the challenge is really liquidity.
Mark, you had a question?
Yeah. I mean, just to add on to that, the liquidity is going to be very challenging for a while until somebody creates these liquidity pools for these types of investments. Just because there's going to be so many that are going to be brought on chain, it's going to be this massive stock market, if you will, but with tokens, and it's going to be very hard to narrow down what to invest in and what not. But it will happen, and I'm confident of that, and we're working on some solutions to the liquidity problem as well. My question is more about the regulatory environment. With regulations coming from all these different countries, what are you doing with tokenized assets to ensure compliance across different jurisdictions? Or are you just saying, look, you listed in Singapore, we're just going to abide by the Singapore regulations and you're on your own when it comes to, other parts of the world?
Now, we have got two pieces of license. One is from the Malaysian offshore license, and the other one coming from Philippines. We are in the process of also trying we are looking into applying for license in Hong Kong, because Hong Kong has also opened up recently, and they have actually issued out, I think, three virtual asset license already. In fact, they are probably going to issue more next year. So we are looking into Hong Kong as well, because Hong Kong is actually a pretty good ground. Singapore, we are also exploring, but Singapore is actually a lot more stricter than we thought, initially. But we have got Malaysia in place and Philippines, so we are targeting countries that we already have license, right? And for countries that we don't have license, what we do is that we will then create now. And all these companies that doing the STO, right? We will need to create an SPV for them, right? So the SPV will then hold the asset, and then the asset will be put in trust, and we will make sure that we want to comply with the regulation of each of these countries in Asia. Now, the good thing in Southeast Asia is that there are still pockets of countries in Asia where it's still very relaxed, like Vietnam, like Thailand, still very relaxed, right? Philippines, is pretty relaxed. But like Singapore is getting a lot stricter. Hong Kong is definitely a lot stricter now because of the recent JPEX exchange implosion. So we will try and comply as much as we can, and because we also have a requirement that we need to meet under the license requirement. But definitely in Asia, I think based on what we have the legal advice that we have gotten so far, right? So far, I think we are able to meet them at least within Asia. That's why I'm not touching, Europe or even US. US is a big no at this point of time. Mainly just Asia, and we're quite comfortable in that sense. And all our advisors are mainly all advisors and consultants, right, on the project. They are all Asian based, so they're either in Hong Kong, Singapore, or Malaysia.
Okay, so you are going ahead and abiding by each of the regulations in each of the countries for each of the securities you're issuing. Is that what you're doing?
Correct.
So somebody from the United States couldn't buy off your platform because you're probably going through a KYC process. Is that true?
We KYC, AML, these are must.
Okay.
Right. We can't offer this right to anyone who does not do KYC. And if the KYC comes in, if someone with a US passport were to KYC, it's not going to go through, right? So we want to make sure that we want to cover ourselves well.
Yeah. So let's say you've got, I think there's 178 countries around the world. Let's say you got 178 different countries with different regulations. Isn't that a logistical nightmare for your platform?
It is. It is a nightmare. So that's why we want to cover an area where we are comfortable with. That's why Asia, we think, is very comfortable. And
But are you calling, I mean, it seems to me that the industry leaders should get together and just say, hey, look, let's come up with a universal regulation that we can get other countries to buy into, and maybe slowly start getting them to adopt a single regulation that makes sense, and then have those countries sign. I know it's a big task. I'm in the middle of
change the law. Mark your
that would be ideal.
But I mean, these regulations in the UAE and Singapore, they're all different. It's like, wait a second, let's figure it out together and then have people subscribe to it. Meaning, okay, UAE is just going to adopt this, this type of standard, and so is this country and El Salvador and all the crypto-friendly ones first, and then the rest of the dominoes should fall. I don't know who could lead such an initiative, but it seems like in order for this really to be global and really to be successful, and I'm in the same space you are, that's going to have to happen. Do you see it that way as well?
I mean, I wish. I mean, initially, I would have loved that US would have taken that role to lead, right, and at least provide some form of guidance or some form of standard that other countries can follow. But looking at where we are right now, it's all different. I mean, but Asia as a whole, they are very similar. There's some similarity, right? And again, all depends on now if you take UAE, right? UAE is a lot more friendly, right? If you compare UAE and to any jurisdiction. But in Asia, there may be some differentiation, right? But overall, it's still friendly, right? At least you can still apply for license, right? You can still go after, like in Hong Kong, right? If you want to be an exchange, you can apply for we call it a virtual asset license, right? So there is avenue for you to apply, or at least seek more information as to how you can kickstart some business in Hong Kong. And Singapore is very similar, right? There's some clarity to digital asset rules and regulation, and you can apply for license if you want to become a payment holder, you want to be asset management. So there's some clarity, but there are some Asian countries they're not there yet. I mean, but which is great, right? And I don't think they have a clue yet. I know they are working on it. I heard like Vietnam and Cambodia have been working on it for like quite a while now, and still they haven't got their act together. But I reckon in the next couple of years, maybe 2 years, I think they should be able to finalize something, right? But at least somehow Asia they work with some form of standard within at least Asia, right? I can't comment the same for the rest of the world, but at least for Asia, there is some form of standardization.
Bill, you had a question.
Yes, so I concur with you a lot, Mark, and I'm in the space as well. I attempted to work with Cardano to tokenize the Caribbean, not for an investable token, but for a way just so they can handle payments between all the islands and among all the islands. And this was a nightmare, by the way. It was the one great thing I've learned about the Caribbean is all these islands kind of hate each other. They could kind of unite because they hate Americans more. So I was this beautiful person to send because they all were on the same side of the table. The reason I tell this story is when I'm listening to you, Elliot, I love what you're doing. I'm in your space. I see the need. It's really broad. Asia's like 3 billion people. So I would actually go back to something you touched on and say, let's pick one country, one set of laws, one interface, and then we can take it to other countries and say, we've done this, now let's customize it. I call it in business a donut. You make the whole and you customize the outside each time. And I think it'll be an easier sell. Saying we did this in, for example, the Philippines. I like the Philippines, by the way, for when American companies want to go to Asia, I always say start in the Philippines. And I can tell you why if you're interested. But we did it in the Philippines. Now we're going to go to Singapore. Now we're going to go to Hong Kong. Now we're going to go to Thailand. These guys who give the licenses know the same guys in the other countries who give the licenses. The Japanese expression is the richest man in Tokyo knows the richest man in Osaka who knows the richest man in Hong Kong.
There you go. We just need Bill to head this up and to take it on.
I got it. I need $20 and about 3 days. No, I can tell you, I lived through this in the Caribbean last winter, and we got into things, and you're not doing the same thing, Alvin. You're not saying everyone has to do this common thing. You're saying we're going to do local branding and local marketing. But the biggest question is, where are we going to meet? I mean, are you kidding? All these islands are great. And, we can't meet in St. Martin. Well, let's meet in St. Martin. Okay, the Dutch side or the French side?
Oh,
well, let's meet on the Dutch side because it'll be safer. Yeah, but the food is lousy. And guys, I got an idea. Why don't we meet in New Jersey? Because everyone will want to meet somewhere else after that.
There we go. All right. Well, I've got a question around, the process of tokenization. And if you could walk us through, Alvin, how, if a company or somebody's got debt or some sort of large asset wants to tokenize their offering, could you walk us through what that looks like at a very high level? Because I'm not sure a lot of people grasp the concept. I say the same thing about IPOs, but still a lot of companies don't even understand that process. So what is the process with NASDEX, and what does that look like for the average company that comes on wants to tokenize their equity?
Okay. So we work with a company. We work with a company called MetaFight, and what they do is that you can think of them as an investment bank that provide advisory and consulting services. They will take on that company and help them to then list on NASDAQ. So what they do is that they will look at the companies. They will do the filtering. We will help them do filtering, right? And once they think this company is good enough, right? What they do is that they will then need to look at their balance sheet, i.e., they have to look at the accounts. And the requirement of looking into the books, right? Basically, what they need is that they need it to be audited. It does not need to be, as long as it's audited by a certified auditor of, let's say, if that company is resided in Hong Kong, as long as there is a certified auditor, right, who has stamp that and sign that off, right? That's good enough already for us, because auditor will need to go and cite the like you mentioned, if they have an asset and all that, the auditor will have to go and audit that property and so forth, right? So anything that's been audited, right, we will then check that as okay on our end. So our requirement is that as long as it's audited by a certified auditor, that will pass through what you have just asked me earlier. So once that's done, right, now we will also get the legal, right, because there's compliant, right? So there's a legal process, there's legal opinion, and then there's compliant requirement that we need to meet because of the license. So once those are done, right, we can then proceed, right, to tokenization. Now, before tokenization, we need to create an SPV. The SPV will then hold, depending on the percentage of shares, right, stocks, right, that will be tokenized. So assuming if it's 20%, we'll take that 20%, we'll park that under the SPV, and then SPV we'll put in trust, right? We put it on the trust, and then subsequently what we do is that we will then tokenize the 20% into tokens, and then of course then we will pass it on to NASDEQ and list them on and send it to the launchpad to raise on. So essentially, that's on the high level.
So how much marketing effort should the company be prepared to put out there once it's listed? Are you looking for companies that have a built-in community, or do you not really care about that, just that they have a marketing plan to sell those tokens?
Right. So no. So there's now initially we were looking at startup, right? If you look at most tech startup in the region, tech startups, right? While they have a good community because they're and being a tech startup, they understand the need in actually building up their social community, and they will have some following, right? Not in the 50,000, but at least in the 5 to 10,000 followers, right? Who actually follow their project. But when you look, when you look on the other side of this, right, most of the so-called well-to-do companies, these are the traditional companies, right? The traditional companies, right? While they are very good and at least making money, they're very poor on marketing, right? So in which case, we will need to help them. I would prefer. I mean we would prefer that at least companies that we are onboarding, right, they have at least 5 to 10,000 of followers on the at least 5 to 10,000 community. So at least we can build those community, keep them informed, right, and when the SDO happens, right, they can participate. So at least there will be some of their followers who has been following an opportunity, right, to invest into their company. Right. If they don't have a very strong community, then we would then recommend the company, right, to set some budget aside, right, and then we have got a third party who can at least we have a marketing and also PR agency, right, who can help them with building a community, similar to how you would build a community in a token project.
Phil, you had a question? Thank you for that answer, Alvin. You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry. Actually, most people think it's better when I am muted. Listen to my jokes.
I wasn't going to say it, but you went there already, so.
Thanks. So you've got a whole bunch of people here. You've got marketing, which I think I live in, and sales. You've got guys who are doing this in real estate. You've got CPAs, right? You've got lawyers. How can we help you? Because I know we don't have a whole lot of time left. What can we do? Wave a wand and say, I need you guys to help me with.
We are constantly talking to a lot of people because we need all the help that we can get. Now, we can't be doing everything ourselves, but the core, we have a core team that looks into some of the most important things that we have to do internally, like compliance, like those we do internally, right? But on marketing, right? We do have a marketing for NASDEX, but when we talk about marketing for our client, we will engage third party. So again, depending on what your expertise are, we're always constantly talking to a lot of people to onboard them, because the entire ecosystem is so new, right? And there's just isn't enough people in the ecosystem at this point of time. Right. So we are constantly looking for projects to help us. Well, I'm sure Mark will probably also know this, because I'm sure in his area, he's constantly looking for people. Especially in RWA right now. I mean, custodian itself is already a headache. If you're dealing with physical thing, storing real world asset is a headache, and who's going to do it, right? And it's not cheap, right?
Yeah. Well, it makes sense to take tokenized companies instead of tokenized wheat. And I see a lot of these companies, because you mentioned the storage issue. Now, me personally, I'm usually brought into these businesses because they need a really attractive bald guy. That's really why they. By the way, Mark, I'm jealous of your hair. Just let's get that on the table right now.
Well, yeah. How do you know it's not a big wig, though? It could just be.
That's cool, Mark.
That is cool. It is cool. Let me just dovetail into what Alvin was talking about. I think in terms of marketing, that's a big one. Once we have the it listed, but education, I can't tell you how many people come to me and say, isn't what you're doing crypto? And I'm like, we're using the same tools as crypto, but this is actually backed by a real asset with intrinsic value. And so I think we need to push that out there. The problem with our industry is FTX and Luna and all these clowns. I mean, we let the clowns run the circus, and now we're suffering the ramifications of that, even though guys like Alvin and myself are doing something not completely different, but it's definitely different. It's definitely valuable. It's definitely above board. But we get dinged because we're using the blockchain or distributed ledgers. And so I would ask everybody to kind of educate people on the difference between crypto and what we're doing, which is tokenization, or what I call fractionalization at times. So Alvin, I don't know if you agree with that, but the more we educate people, I think the faster.
I can't agree more.
Takes hold.
I can't agree more.
Yeah.
I rarely talk about, crypto. Now, when I talk about crypto, I talk about those clowns, right? Now, the reality is that what we are doing is tokenization. I mean, it's digital asset, security, right? And it's completely different from crypto, right?
But you know what's been happening, Mark? And I saw this in 3D printing. I saw this in cannabis. I saw this in big data. The adults are coming in, right?
Good.
I'm not going to try to guess your age, but you're certainly not 23. I mean, you've certainly years on you. You've certainly done some businesses, right? I actually went to college with Abraham Lincoln. So we're getting some older people with business experience that comes back. It's actually how I got in the industry. I came in because the industry came to me saying, we kind of need a grown up.
Yeah.
They hired me, which was a mistake because they got the mind of a 5-year-old.
Well, you're starting to see the BlackRocks. You're starting to see the Bank of America's, Citibanks, all these guys that pan crypto are huge tokenization supporters. But the difference is they're tokenizing bonds at this point, and they're tokenizing big billion-dollar debt instruments. They're not doing what we're doing yet, but I like their message, and I hope it trickles down to what we're doing. We just have to make it easier for people to do business with us. And I know working with wallets and working with the blockchain and working with these tokens is a foreign concept to most people. And I blame ourselves. We just have to make it easier. We got to make it as easy as banking at this point. And if we can't do that, then that's on us.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Mark. I read some articles in regards to how BlackRock and companies on Wall Street, they are tokenizing financial instruments, which tells us this is the future. This is here to stay. So everything that you're doing right now, I truly believe that, to take an asset that has intrinsic value, like Mark was stating earlier, and tokenize it in their format. Now it comes down to the education that we have to deliver to just the common investor. When I was advising is the most important thing is when you're presenting or recommending this investment to an investor or a client is their education. Do you understand that this has this level of risk and this is time horizon that you have to set aside this money, and this is investment profile, right? All those things need to be jogged down and asked before you present it before an investor, because ultimately the investor is going to listen to your advice. And as advisors, what a history of advisory business is making sure that you understand the investment you're investing in, making sure it fits your time horizon of your current portfolio, and making sure you're not deviating or increasing more risk than where you need to be. So all those things needs to be delivered to the client in a form of education. And the market is still very young in terms of crypto, but we understand that this is here to stay. This will be our future. And there's going to be a lot more protocols, a lot more projects. There's going to be a lot more education that comes in. And it starts with us on this group to educate people around the world, knowing that it's here to stay. So I agree with everything that you guys are saying. Alvin, wish you the best. I do probably have some people to talk to you about your real estate tokenization, because I think that from any size of investor can participate. And I think that I really like that aspect of it. Is any small investors can participate in a tokenized format. But I think you're in a phase that you're looking for investors and capitalists to kind of get it going. In terms of real estate, one last one. In terms of real estate, what type of real estate? I don't think we asked that question. is there any specific types of real estates that you're looking to tokenize, or
Alvin's not looking to tokenize real estate. at
Maybe
this time.
maybe Mark can
oh, Mark, sorry.
yeah,
Sorry.
you can ask Mark. He's an expert.
Well, I mean,
Sure.
anything can be tokenized, but not everything should be.
Right.
I know there's a bunch of platforms like Arrive.com that's doing residential. Here in Dubai, there's a company called Get Stake and Smart Crowd, but they have to go buy the properties, these residential properties, then they fractionalize them. It's not tokenization though, because there's no secondary market for it. So it's just fractionalizing. It's really breaking it down into shares. What we're doing is true tokenization, where there will be a secondary market, like what Alvin's putting out there. And so, and remind me what your question was, Alan. Sorry, I had to give that background first.
Oh, it was, I mean, real estate is around the world. Like, what pockets, what types of real estate? Because there's commercial, residential, there's apartment complexes, there's, stadium.
Anything and everything, but you have to be careful in what you allow to be tokenized, because if you've got a property that's 100% encumbered by loans, that might not be something that makes a lot of sense unless you can convince investors that it's undervalued, and then you could raise more money. But then we get into appraisals, we get into all sorts of logistical challenges there. So what I like to say is anything over a couple $1 million in value, like multifamily, commercial, industrial, hotels, anything that produces, any real estate that produces consistent revenue, great for tokenization. And there's plenty of use cases that back each of those things up. The big thing for us is awareness, and that's coming. I think Bill said it well. The adults are entering, thank God. And they're going to bring a level of professionalism that the crypto community hasn't seen. I don't know how many crossovers there'll be on crypto, because what I've seen and what I've experienced is most of them are looking for quick bucks. And that is not tokenization of real estate. Tokenization of real estate is more like consistent income. We did a study where if you were to invest $1,000 a month, and I know not everyone has $1,000 a month, and a tokenized real estate offering, just paying an average 7 or 8%, and you can get more, believe me, you will have a very consistent income of between $25,000 and $30,000 a month after 10 years of doing that program. Those are the people we're looking for, is somebody who wants to build long-term wealth where they cannot do it today. There's no other way of doing it than through this tokenization process, because you're not going to be a limited partner unless you've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on these larger projects. Yet some of these large projects are making a fortune.
Yeah, it's just like having a qualified investor get into a real estate investment trust. You have to have a certain level of assets just to get in. So
without the middlemen and without the big fees. So
exactly. So kind of what you're doing is it'll be great to see a use case for REITs, the real estate investment trust. I think that will open up to a lot of people like that wants to invest that $1,000 a month, and give that, that income stream and build long-term wealth. I think the REIT market, that could be a game changer for what you're doing right there.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see that, and we call this the democratization of real estate, by the way. You'll see people put portfolios of real estate together and then call it a REIT, even though it won't be technically a REIT, but they'll call it a REIT, and you can invest in that. We're not doing that out of the gate, but that is definitely on our roadmap for people to do, is to cobble these things together and then call it some version of a REIT.
Yeah, put them in a portfolio. I think that's
exactly.
I think Bill had a last.
Bill, we have time for one last question, and then we're gonna close up. We have a couple questions. I have a last question, but Bill, go ahead with your question.
It's not really a question, Mark. I wanted to point out the way you're talking is what the industry needs to hear. When I'm in marketing in this space, and everyone's talking about technology differentiators that none of us care about. I'm just sorry. When you talk about building a portfolio of wealth and interest-bearing securities, That's the problem you're solving. And that's what's so missing from this industry. And I always show one example. This is an iPhone. And I have no idea how it works. I just push a button and LinkedIn opens. Or I push a button and I'm talking to Crystal. But if you ask me how this worked, couldn't tell you. So not a question. I'll pass it back to Crystal. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Well, that is exactly what we want to do, right? We want to make it very simple, yeah, because blockchain, security, crypto, you name it, these are very, very technical an area.
Yeah.
What we want to develop are products that we can fractionalize them, right? With an interest bearing that people can make money, right? At least they are buying something that has an underlying value, right? and if they hold on to that value, right, with a guaranteed yield, well, not guaranteed, at least some expectation of yield on what Mark was saying, right? These are it's very stable yield that you get year over year, and that's what we're trying to sell to investors long term.
Alvin, so in 2 minutes or less, I would like you to tell me, looking ahead, what is the long-term vision for NASDEQ.io, and how do you see it evolving with the blockchain and real estate sectors?
I think we are still early stage into RWA, real world asset, but there are lots of things happening around the space. I mean, like Mark is focusing on tokenizing properties. There are people tokenizing all kinds of stuff, and we're tokenizing equity, right? And there are so many other projects out there, working on RWA, and I think it will take some time, but the future looks good. And with Mark was saying, this is companies like BlackRock, the financial institutions who have got into blockchain, got into this in a very big way, and they're doing huge volume of tokenization, right? And we hope that will bring a lot of education, and that will also trickle down to us. And maybe if all this happen, right, maybe in 5 years time, right, we will see, right, this going mainstream. And I'm a believer. I mean, there are lots of numbers that's being thrown out there, like between $4 trillion to $10 trillion in 2030, right? Even if you get half of that, right, that's great for all of us. And I think that's where we're headed.
Thank you for that. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you, Alvin and Mark. Alvin, can you please tell our viewers where they can contact you at?
You can look me up on Twitter. My handle is Alvin Fu, one word, ALVINFOO, or you can look me up on LinkedIn, Alvin Fu as well.
Wonderful, thank you. And Mark, where can our viewers and listeners find you as well?
I would say Twitter as well, at Mark Fidelman, or on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/IN/Fidelman.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Alan, can you say today's closing prayer in Chinese?
I'll say it in English so everyone can understand.
Okay,
你可
thank
以
you.
讲普通话的，我也听得懂。
你可以先对。Let's pray. Right. Heavenly gracious Father, Lord, thank you so much for building a just amazing group every single week. This week we talked about cryptocurrency, tokenization of real estate, and just meeting people that are in this space. Just really just eye-opening, knowing that this is going to be the future. This technology has been created to be applicable in our daily lives. We understand this. It's still very new and still in development stage, but God, I know that you put these people with the like-minded individuals that are professionals that come from different space in their career, and their life journey has so much experience and so much color and so much wealth. I just pray that you continue to bring these people together to the show so we learn from each other, inspire each other, and help each other grow. Pray for this weekend that you be with us in all things that we do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.